I've learned that going down the road of innovation, it can be bumpy and unpleasant a whole lot of time. But if you're traveling down that road, on the innovation road, with talented and pleasant people, it's a journey that really is worth taking, and because you can overcome things that have not been built before.
Welcome to the AttractionPros podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges facing the attractions industry today.
We chat with some of the top leaders in the field and provide resources that will help develop your career in this great industry.
I am Josh Liebman. I am obsessed with the guest experience and helping attractions make that their top priority for success.
And I'm Matt Heller. I am passionate about organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and employee engagement.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and get ready for the AttractionPros podcast.
Hey, Josh, how are you?
Hey, Matt, I'm doing awesome. How are you?
I am fantastic.
Woohoo!
It's actually been a while since we recorded an episode, just based on travel and stuff, and I don't think I've said fantastic for a little while. So thanks for allowing.
Honestly, Matt, I've missed it.
Well, you know what?
Thankfully, I can relive it whenever I want on my phone, on any episode, at least the last 50, 60 or so. Pretty sure you haven't missed one yet.
Yeah.
I can't remember when, I don't know what the origin point was of your catchphrase.
I don't either. Is it a catchphrase? Can that be like a hashtag or what is it?
It just depends on the amount of A's that you use. It would have to be consistent if it's going to be a hashtag.
That's true. That's true. Well, I have a question for you. Besides, when did I start saying fantastic?
We'll put that one on the back burner. We'll do our research on that.
We'll put that in the parking lot. Have we ever had two guests that we interviewed back to back that were working together on a project?
To our knowledge, not that I know of, until episodes 201, 202.
That's right. That's right. So last week we spoke to Brian Yessian of Yessian Music about all kinds of different music and sound related type things and how he's working on his project in the islands of Pigeon Forge. And today we get to talk to his counterpart for Dynamic Attractions, Guy Nelson.
Yeah. Which, by the way, if you have not listened to episode 201 yet, it was so cool. It was so awesome. Make sure to check it out after this one. But in the meantime, Guy Nelson is the executive chairman and CEO of Dynamic Technologies. And we are going to talk everything about ride engineering, ride design, the evolution of technology from his time in the industry, which is, he just has a wealth of knowledge of how ride designs and ride systems have come to where they are today. And then we even talk a little bit about where it might be going in the future and what people demand and expect from the types of experiences that we as an industry provide.
What I think is really interesting is how he talks about working with engineers and, how much he likes doing that and from a leadership standpoint. But when you talk about what's not possible, what might be possible, he says things like dreams can be expensive, right? But that just means that you have to think about how you're going to make those dreams happen. And what he has kind of carved out a niche for in the industry is creating those iconic anchor attractions that people just flock to theme parks and attractions to experience.
Mm-hmm. And total side note, small tangent here. We were recently decorating our nursery for our son Jacob, who the day of this recording, he's 6 months old. Woo-hoo! And you just reminded me of one of my favorite Walt Disney quotes, which we have printed out. We found it on Etsy, this beautiful artistic version of it, and it's now on its wall. And it says, "It's kind of fun to do the impossible." And I think Guy really lives and breathes that mentality, because we find out about iterating your way to success and collaborating with the operators and the co-ventures and really being able to get to those amazing solutions. And like you said, Dynamic Attractions, he said their goal is to be the iconic attractions in the park and the ones that really bring people to the parks as well. So obviously that is a lofty goal, right? That's a tall order for any design firm. But I think that the way that and we're going to hear from Guy, and the way that they get to that point is very effective and nothing short of inspiring for our industry and for our audience.
So not only do we want to hear in the coming years the impossible things that Jacob does and that he creates and overcomes and innovates, but also I think we should get to this conversation with Guy Nelson.
Let's do it. Hey, Guy, welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast. We are so excited to chat with you today. How are you?
I'm very good. Very good.
Excellent.
Pleased to be here. Pleased to be with you guys.
We are pleased to have you here. So as we jump off into this, Guy, can you tell us just a quick overview? Tell us about yourself and a quick overview of your career.
Sure. Well, I founded Dynamic Technologies in 2006, and I currently employ about 100 employees. The design and supply some of the iconic rides in the industry, in the theme park industry, for the largest companies. And it's been a focus of mine since 2006. Before that, I held a bunch of positions in fabrication, manufacturing, leadership positions in construction and transportation. Early in my career, I had a fair bit of time in M&A business and the venture capital business. So it set me up pretty well to be doing what I'm doing today. I continue today to co-chair a company called Tornado Hydrovacs, a company that I spin off to Dynamic shareholders back in 2016. And forming its own separate public company. Upon reflection, I'd probably say that my diverse leadership roles in a variety of industries, ranging from startups to roll-ups to rapidly growing companies, is really what has differentiated my background.
Can you talk a little bit more about that leadership? Because obviously there's a lot of leaders in the audience, and any nuggets that you can take from that career, from all those different experiences that would help people kind of navigate their own leadership journey?
Well, I'd say you have to, in all leadership, you really have to have a clear vision where you're going, because you'll never get there otherwise. And so that's one thing that I would say is fundamentally important. I think the other observation in hindsight is that you really have to persevere. It's one thing to have a great strategy, but it's another one to stick to it, because you are going to inevitably have bumps and roadblocks and things that get in your way from getting to where you want to get to. So perseverance, stick-to-itness is a pretty fundamentally important character trait, more almost than a leadership trait, that you need to have. I don't know if that helps, but those would be a couple of things that come to mind right off the bat.
Yeah. And there are definitely some bumps in the road over the last year, 15 months or so that I'm sure that we'll get to shortly. But before we do that, can you expand a little bit on Dynamic Attractions, the type of attractions that you build, the type of clients that you serve, and just overall what you do for the industry? Sure.
Well, I created Dynamic Attractions in 2011. And it was a spinoff from the ride manufacturing activities of Dynamic Structures, which had been in the business for the prior 10 years. In terms of employment, Dynamic saw its salaried staff manufacturing levels grow significantly from the 50 that we started with. And most of that growth was in engineering. I'd say over the past decade, we saw our skilled trades go down from 500 to about 50. And this is because we decided to outsource more of the commodity aspects of our fabric to third parties and to focus on self-performing just the most critical and complex parts. And that's what we kept in-house. So there's growth in engineering and a shrinking of our skilled trades where we relied on third parties. Mm-hmm. So Dynamic Attractions is a product line that we've developed over the past decade, has focused on media-based attractions and really complex ride systems. For some of the biggest companies in the industry, we tend to build fairly expensive things for our customers. So the types of products that we build are, I like to think, the most iconic ones in the park, right? And they draw people to the park. And that has been our raison d'etre. That's why we have been in business and what we focused on.
So you would... Yeah, so you would say that they're kind of the anchor attraction, right? The thing that draws people in, draws them to a certain part of a facility or a park, and helps them obviously expand and see other things. But this is kind of what draws people in. So I'm curious from that standpoint, as you talk about engineering that kind of experience, how do you engineer an iconic experience like that, knowing that you're starting from scratch, right? How do you, it's kind of like saying, I want to create a viral video. Well, you can't just create a viral video, right? So creating an iconic attraction before you have even, a pen on paper to draw it out. What's the thought process that goes behind that?
Well, there's really two different market niches. One would be where we drive that innovation internally with our technical staff and creative staff. And then there's the other example, which would be where we partner or work with a client, right? That the client has a vision that they want to a guest experience that they'd like to create. And we collaboratively work through that process together. So those two examples, and we participated actively in both, right? And because quite often the biggest guys in the industries have pretty clear pictures of what it is they want to produce as an end result. They don't necessarily understand how to get there. And so they'll work, and they also know, I think over time, these companies, the big companies have realized that it's not the type of things that's easily tendered, right? It's it's not a build a print. It really is a lot more complicated than that. And so we've been active in both, had lots of success with working in collaboration with customers. In fact, my board and I have kind of written an unwritten rule of preferring to do that type of business than doing it ourselves. It's doing it yourself. It's a lot riskier. It's it always has to be customer focused, but we're one step removed from customers, right? We're a ride vendor, so the jump to doing it yourself and thinking that you have the answer for the guest experience that's going to resonate can have challenges to it. But we've done both and successfully created some of the most iconic rides in the industry and are proud of that effort.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about what those collaborative meetings look like when talking about the guest experience and the vision from the operator, and then weaving in your contribution to that and being able to help them maybe navigate that towards what's going to be the best solution and the best attraction that they're going to invest in?
Yeah, well, one of the best examples I'd say has been when on a collaborative basis, when we're working with a customer where we work through the prototype design together, right? And so that clearly there's a clear picture of what it is the guest experience should be and what we're trying to accomplish, and the motion and the throughput and a lot of the complexities of what you're trying to get to. But prototyping together allows you to kind of iterate your way to success and get to that end result. Sometimes you iterate your way out of a particular prototype and into another type of prototype through that iterative process. So that I'd say that's our preferred route, right? Because it allows you to not shoulder all the financial burden of taking that risk yourself, in the hope that you get there, and in the hope that the market likes what you got when you get there. And if you have a customer there, correcting path with you, working with you to figure out what can be done, what can't be done, it's a better model.
Guy, you just mentioned, kind of looking at what can be done, what can't be done. Can you talk a little bit more about what can't be done? I mean, I think that we know what we have and we know what we see currently, but part of your job is to innovate and even come up with new technology. So how do you quantify what you can't do if nobody's ever done it before? And then you say, well, what if we did this? I'm just curious about that kind of process.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you've ever managed engineers, or if in fact you guys are even engineers in your background, but I've managed a whole lot of engineers in my career, a lot of talented ones, very talented ones. And there really isn't a concept out there that can't be engineered if you have enough time and money and persistence, right? So I've learned that going down the road of of innovation, it can be bumpy and unpleasant a whole lot of time. But if you're traveling down that road, on the innovation road, with talented and pleasant people, it's a journey that really is worth taking. And because you can overcome things that have not been built before. We have a saying in dynamic structures. It's one of our, it is our motto. I should say one of our mottos. We only have one motto, and that is anything you dream, we can build. It does that. I've often thought of adding at a profit to that tagline, because quite often dreams are expensive to realize. But it is an interesting thing that drives the passion of our employees towards things that haven't been built before. And it probably goes back to, I don't know if you know or not, but in Dynamic Structures case, a company that went back to 1926, I should say, in its when it was founded out in Vancouver. That company has built and evolved over the years, but in the 70s and 80s and 90s and 2000s, we became very talented at building telescope enclosures on top of mountaintops. We built more than half the world's large telescopes that had never been built before, right? So in our DNA, we have this ability and drive towards doing things that haven't been done before and taking on challenges that most people, well, in their right mind, maybe avoid taking, but the end result can be quite satisfying when you do get there and when you build these spectacular facilities on top of mountaintops that allow us to see back into the almost the start of time. So it's a passion that we have in our company, and it's evolved into dynamic attractions from dynamic structures. So everything we do and touch and feel it emanates from doing things other people haven't done. And I don't know, it's an unusual thing that we've been able to accomplish over our fairly long history.
So throughout your time in the business, what would you say have been some of the most impactful changes, or, as you watch the evolution of attractions design and engineering that you've seen have just made some of the biggest impact to the way that, amusements or attractions and technology really serve the client and serve the guest? Yeah,
well, I'll limit my comment here just to the 15 years I've been in this business, right? So I don't know what went before me a whole lot. I haven't really focused on that. But in the past 15 years, I would say probably the most impactful, one of the first most impactful things that I can observe would be the popularity of media-based attractions. And so in the evolution of dark rides, right? So it really took off with the first Harry Potter Forbidden Journey in Islands of Adventure. And that just opened everybody's eyes to a new genre of ride system, right? And our company's focused on being leaders in that market niche. Like, we really have zeroed in on that from that point forward, right? I'd say the second thing that in observation would be that the use of software to control the motion of coasters and track ride vehicles and theaters. This has been a rapidly growing market niche as well. And our company's built up a controls group to develop proprietary ride control systems that have never been done before. And so those two things, if they're things, have been the most impactful changes that I've seen in the past 15 years.
So, Guy, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but think ahead 15 years. What are we going to see, or, what kind of new forbidden journeys are we going to have out there?
Yeah, that's a tough one to say, because there's the ride system that Universal's has opened up and kind of will open up again in Japan and Osaka, is an augmented reality ride system where the guests will, like they did with the Harry Potter ride systems, continue to really be immersed in the experience of that IP, right? That story, that pre-story that they came to the park already well versed in, right? And so I think taking guests to another level, right, of immersive experience is what you're going to see a lot more of in the next 15, 20 years. And, you know, and the motion bases that are needed to move people through spaces and time and experience will be, you know, what we have to, as a company, continue to strive to deliver on, right? And so I think that that's probably an area that you're going to see a lot more new attractions come to market with, right? Where you're leveraging an IP, an existing IP that there's already a pre-story in your guest's mind that they'd like to have a deeper appreciation for by experiencing what it is you're doing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm curious for your thoughts on the role of intellectual property in immersive experiences. Do you think that that is just going to continue to accelerate, or do you think that, you know, we're going to see even more, I would say, creativity or developing a unique story that people hadn't seen before? Or does that just not spin turnstiles in the same way as an iconic character like Harry Potter?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a tough question, but we as a company have really invested heavily in kind of creating new experiences there. We've invested, I can't believe it's, but I've added the numbers up. We've actually invested $50 million in developing ride systems in the past 5 years, pre-COVID, right? And it's an amazing amount of money. And you know, 8 of those attractions are coming to market this year, right? That we're commissioning now, and you're going to see in those 8 different rides, most of which I can't talk about too specifically, but still because of confidentiality agreements that we have with our clients. But those rides have been all over the world, right? And they're going to be in their own way, innovatively taking guests through a different experience. All of them are media-based attractions, and some have IP, some don't have IP. They all have content. They all have you know, a sort of an experience, a memory that comes out the other end that is highly unique, and we'll be bringing people back to those parks. So I don't know. I think you will probably see more of what we've been doing, what we're bringing to market this year, once our customers kind of fix their balance sheets and get the turnstiles going and get back into business that they want to be in, which is entertaining guests. So I don't know if that answers the question, but we'll see. You know, we're committed to kind of continue to leverage our own IP going forward and do more of what we've figured out as being pretty compelling experiences, and taking those to locations where tourist success is part of our mandate, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, Guy, you said the magic word, which is COVID. So now we get to talk a little bit about that, and we would be remiss here in June of 2021, as we're recording this, to not talk about that a little bit. So can you talk a little bit about how COVID has impacted dynamic attractions?
Sure. Yeah, you're right. It would be a hole in this discussion to not talk about it because everyone has been dealing with it for over a year and a half. Well, COVID-19 has had a devastating impact on the whole industry, right? It's not just us as a company, but it's had an impact on dynamic attractions as well. I think it's abundantly clear now in hindsight, and organizations and companies were not prepared for the negative impacts of what was caused by the pandemic. The theme park industry and its supply chain have been particularly hurt, right? It's out-of-home experience that if you're not able to get out of your home, you're obviously negative effect on that. Having said that, Dynamic has adapted. We've reduced our capacity in the ride manufacturing business. We're confident that in time our customers will come back and will start to spend again and offering fresh and appealing experiences to their guests. And we're seeing that a little bit now already in increased opportunities to work on and to bid on. But we got a long way to go too. So when you compare it to the 5 years before COVID, which were very aggressively expansionary, right? I'd say the two biggest challenges that Dynamic Attractions has had to deal with in the pandemic are the first would be the delayed mobilizations and commissioning programs have really increased our costs to complete these 8 jobs I mentioned this year that are working towards 21 openings. The park's open, the park's closed. You need a visa, you can't get a visa. You know, just the quarantining, the parts supply, just on and on and on. So just that whole giddy up go impact on our business is very tough to navigate. And I'd say the other big impact on us as a company and everybody, our competitors in the business as well, is the lack of bidding opportunities, right? Our prospective customers are really protecting their cash. They're sitting on their hands, deferring and directly cutting back ride procurement, right? That will change in due course, but there's no question that they're more focused on getting open and re-engaging that. So this has had the net effect on us of having to reduce our employees a lot, unfortunately, right? We've had government programs that have helped us to maybe not go as deep as we have had to go, but 300 employees before COVID to 100 employees at the end of this year is a big impact, right? And a tough one to handle. And it's just not a pleasant experience, right? I've been through ups and downs before. The last recession in 2009 was another kind of mother of all recessions, but I do think that this is the mother of all pandemics for sure. I hope it is anyway, that there's not many more like this, but we've had to be fleet of foot to just to survive the challenges. So COVID's been real for everybody, for our competitors, I'm sure, are in no different position than ourselves. And our customers. It all flows back from the customers. So out-of-home entertainment is coming back. We all know that on the positive side now that, well, people have been in their home, they've been saving money, and if they've been able to retain employment, saving money and getting crazy. There's only so many TV shows and binge shows that you can watch. And so we're experiencing that in Tennessee, actually, down in the park where we're going to open up an attraction there in about just before the long weekend, Independence Day weekend down there. That the park's hitting all-time records attendance, right? So people are desperately trying to get out of their basements and into a more normal life again, and so the parks are going to be the beneficiaries of that return to normalcy. And then eventually, again, ride procurement will happen following that as well. So that's the good thing, right? People have money and the desire to get back in the saddle and enjoy life, right? And that tends to be out of the home.
Yeah. You mentioned the project in Tennessee, coming up on its grand opening. Definitely want to talk about that. But before we do, just a follow-up question to that and the impact on attraction design. I'm actually kind of curious for long-lasting, maybe just consumer behavior from the pandemic, and if that actually changes the way that rides or maybe ride vehicles actually go through the design process. Are people demanding more spacing and seating in a ride vehicle, or does it need to be easier to reach for the operator if they're continuing enhanced sanitation measures or anything like that? I'm just curious if that has actually impacted from the actual engineering standpoint.
Well, we did iterate some changes to our theater product line, to have separations of guests, reduction in capacity. It really does hurt economics when you capacity constrain. And that's true for the parks as well, right? They don't make money at 25% capacity. They might break even at those levels, but we've looked at that. We've had, our focus has been more on the cleaning of the ride systems. There is UV lighting and technology that is probably going to be more prevalent on all ride systems, but coasters notoriously are going to be hard pressed to limit either the capacity or the effect of airborne droplets, right? It just, it's a screaming type of experience to start with. So it's if you tell everyone not to scream, it's maybe going to defeat the purpose a little bit. So I think it really is more on the preventative side, on the vaccination side, on the mask side, for sure, will be part of that. So just the overall operational protocols that have got put into place are going to impact more the park operations than they will the rides themselves, right? So I think that rides by definition they're quite capital intensive, and to limit capacity will make it somewhat problematic, right? So I don't think that solutions in stretching out or keeping people further apart. Part of it is part of the experience is to share that experience with others, right? Not just by yourself. So we've looked at it, we've studied it, but we haven't implemented any of the particular changes to the design because of COVID. But we've definitely looked at doing that.
Guy, I'm curious. You said earlier, and I agree with you, that we weren't really prepared for this pandemic and what it was going to do to our companies. From a leadership standpoint, since you talked about leadership earlier, what can we do to prepare for the next one? I hope there isn't one, but that kind of disruption to our business, what should we be thinking of or putting in place as leaders to kind of help make sure our companies are ready for something like that?
Like I might take this down the road of a sort of a thought process. When you're strategically positioning your company or going towards a particular new field or somewhere where you can avoid problems like the ones we've just come through. There was a book that was quite impactful on my career back in the early 2000s. It came out, and it was it talked about a metaphor of blue oceans and red oceans. And you probably have even read the book yourself or excerpts from the book, but I've really followed that. I was just thinking about that in hindsight a little bit. It is chasing blue oceans. That's a metaphor for going into markets that don't exist. They don't have competitors in there currently. In contrast to a red ocean, which has got lots of competition, lots of guys doing the same thing, lots of and bloody water as a consequence. And so through my career, I've really tried to succeed in a blue ocean strategy. To do that, you have to be analytically able to create opportunity. You have to eliminate waste. You have to reduce costs and things that are not adding to the overall experience, right? And that has stood me in pretty good stead, I'd say, over the time. And I don't think this is going to be a whole lot different than that. You have to kind of think about where's the market going to be, not where is it now, where is it today, where was it yesterday. You have to think about where it's going to be, right? And then I go back to, the best place to figure that out is with customers and with people that are close to the marketplace, right? To show how that has worked in Dynamic Attractions case, what we've done, we probably had 3 major pivots in our short little 15-year stint. And then, when I acquired Dynamic Structures in 2007, the first decision was simply to shift more into designing and manufacturing some of the most popular and complex ride systems in the world, along with the astronomical telescopes I was talking about, for the biggest theme park operators in the world, right? And so I wanted to shift towards that because that was and is a good place to be, right? Then in 2011, I made another pivot, and not out of that business, but complementing that business, supplementing that business, to say, I want to focus on designing and supplying ride systems that are created by Dynamic Attractions, right? So this led our company to wind down its investment in steel fabrication. We spun off Tornado Hydrovacs into its own company. Didn't fit that particular strategy. So that pivot really of designing and supplying our own was a secondary pivot, which we really have done, and we're bringing a bunch of those to market this year, as it turns out. Then in 2018, yet another pivot, right, which was creating a co-venture business called Dynamic Entertainment to leverage our own ride designs and combine them with show and content and partnership with a local tourist operator. And so those three pivots all were going towards new markets, right? All going towards areas where other people aren't necessarily, other competitors, other people, the companies weren't necessarily pursuing with the same rigor as we have. And so I think that's really what I would say any leader of any company needs to do, is have a pretty clear vision of what it is you want to go, where you want to be, right? What do you want to do when you grow up? Where do you want to be as where do you want to take the team that you assemble? And that does necessitate adjustments, right? Pivoting, changing, looking at the landscape and saying, I can't do this, I got to do this, and surviving, right? And we've had for sure in the pandemic, those skills are pretty important to be able to figure out, the new lay of the land, and so I don't know. It's I used to think I was going to leave my pivoting behind in the basketball court back in the day, in the day, but I pivoted more in business than I ever did in basketball.
When you talk about these pivots and when you talk about this blue ocean strategy, I think the first question that comes to mind for me is, how do you know that it's right to go into that blue ocean? Otherwise saying, maybe the ocean is blue for a very specific reason. Maybe you don't want to go into the shark infested, bright red or dark red or whatever it is waters there. But knowing kind of, making sure that the ocean is blue because there's opportunity, not because there is no opportunity.
Yeah. I spent most of my career trying to identify market opportunities that exist out there that we can navigate towards, and trying to reduce my focus on highly competitive industries and focus on more innovative industries where there's a value add to the expertise that we can bring to bear on a particular opportunity, blue ocean, as the metaphor goes. In all sorts of product innovation examples, historical examples, from Apple to the innovation of the first computer to the first cell phone, the first BlackBerry, the first use of the internet, all of those started with somebody identifying a need that wasn't being satisfied in any way, shape, or form, and it was a break from tradition. It wasn't. The car wasn't an evolution of the buggy, the horse and buggy, right? It was a break from that into moving people through space faster, quicker, better, safer, and going back to fundamentals, right, like that, and then solving that in a different, more innovative way. So it's a challenge to do it that way. But if you decide to surround yourself with a bunch of engineers, God bless you if you do that. But if you do that, you are going to come up with, from time to time, breakthroughs that are innovative and hit the mark, right? And I've been trying to do that my whole career, right? And it's been largely filled with things to overcome, but eventually you get there.
So I know we mentioned a minute ago the new project there in Tennessee. So can you kind of walk us through that a little bit and tell us a little bit more about the Smoky Mountain Flyer?
Yeah, well, the timing's good on this one because we're opening up in a couple of weeks, so we're a little late. We wanted to be open for Memorial Day. COVID, God bless COVID, but it's squeezed probably 3 months of commissioning into 3 weeks because you don't want to miss the Independence Day weekend, right? You got to be open for the summer. And we're going to get there. It'll be a soft opening. We probably have a few bugs to work out. We'll have a hard opening later in the summer. But it will be prime time. It'll be ready, and it will be exciting. A little bit on our partner. I think I don't know if people understand what a co-venture is or a partnership model is, but in this particular partnership, our partner owns the theme park, the island in Pigeon Forge in the Smoky Mountains. It's the Smoky Mountains are one of the most, if not, I think they are the most visited national park in the U.S. And what we jointly had as a vision together was to bring a world-class ride system to that location to complement and experience of visiting the Smoky Mountains, to complement the experience of visiting Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg, kind of a fun place to visit, and to bring a world-class attraction that will delight the families that come to the island. And that was the vision that we had. The premise is pretty simple. I mean, it's taking a world-class attraction that has been proven to be successful in the large theme parks, and to sort of add that to the mix on other locations, more regional locations where tourists are already coming to, and to complement that experience. You know, that going vertical, right, as opposed to just making and selling ride systems that are quite popular, making and selling and retaining a partial ownership in partnership with a location-based entertainer, is a capital intensive. It's going vertical. It's leveraging your IP for sure, but it's doing so in a recurring. It generates a recurring profit stream if you can do it well. It's not, again, there's a lot of pieces there to pull together. They're quite a bit more value added than just the ride system itself. Creating an attraction that resonates with the guests in a particular location is a leap, right? And we're about to find out if we made the leap successfully. I think I don't know what Brian said. I hope Brian thought it's going to succeed. They were a key part of that part that they added, of adding music to motion to the experience, to the location. But we're pretty excited about it. And I do have a pipeline of some incredible other opportunities in behind that one that we want to take to market, right? It's people will always go to theme parks, and rightfully so. They're a spectacular experience if they're done well, and the people we work for tend to do them well. So that will always be a huge part of the market. But another part of the market is taking pretty fun experiences to the market, right, where the market is, and that tends to be a little more regional, right, and particularly in a post-COVID world. So I think we're pretty excited about that, and Smoky Mountain is the first of many. I guess it was one of those pivots again when I decided to when I was looking at all my customers that were using our flying theater and either developing it into a great attraction or not, maybe as good an attraction as it could have been. It struck me that we needed to. There was an opportunity for us to do that in a way that properly embellished the unique features of our particular flying theater, and turning that into an attraction that is world class. So we'll see. We're about to see. I may find out that we're not quite as successful as I think we're going to be, but my guess is that it's going to be a resounding success and pave the way for some fun things going down the road. It is capital intensive though, so we are out in the market looking for that financial partner. I'll put a plug here. We're not done that to the process yet, and I think when people see what can be done in a place like the island in Pigeon Forge, I think that we'll get through that process pretty successfully as well. But it's a much more capital intensive business, not as capital intensive as it can be if you're not in the business. If you're like us, where you know a lot of the ins and outs and the tricks of the trade and actually manufacture, we can manage the capital cost to a level that is affordable and does work economically. If you don't have sort of the background that we have and that we've assembled, and it can be a challenging business because you can't spend. There's a limit to how much you can invest up front and expect to get a return over time. So, in any event, that is a really exciting new effort for us. We do think it's also a proactive way to go after the market. I'm not sitting on my hands waiting for others to engage us in making a ride system for others. If they want to take their time and do that, we'll bide that time, but we're not going to sit on our hands and wait. We're going to proactively go out to where we see a tremendous opportunity today, not 5 years from today.
Well, Guy, this has been just such an interesting interview and conversation with you. We really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you today. And before we wrap up here, just curious here, if you weren't in this industry, what do you think you would be doing?
Well, we retired in limiting my business activities to participate in just a few public companies that I like the industry, that I like the management, I like the strategic position of the companies, and just sort of impart what little wisdom I may be able to impart at the board level. I've also thought that I'd probably be writing a book. My journey's been a crazy one. So I might write a book. It's been, if I've been called a serial entrepreneur once, it's been 500 times. My entrepreneurial quests are wide and far, and some far more successful than others. But there has been a lot to be learned in my journey. And so I might write a book. I don't know. That's probably a fun thing to do as I slow down, but I'm not slowing down right now. The co-venture opportunity is too big and too compelling and too exciting. And I passionately believe that it's the proper leverage of what it is we've built to date, what it is we've learned to date is best leveraged through partnering in the ownership of what we create. So I don't think I'm going to extract myself too quickly from this business, but I'm going to stick with that one for sure, because I think we're going to get there on that. And Tennessee's about to tell me. So I hope you guys can come and visit it, and others come and visit the island in Pigeon Forge. We've got great partners there. It was one of those 1 + 1 = a heck of a lot more than 2. And they brought different things to the table than what we brought to the table, and it was a good partnership. And we're still talking too, so it's pretty hairy right now, I'd have to say, on site, because there's a punch list of 50 things that have to be fixed before tightened up before we open. But we'll get there. We do have the right team there to do that, and but I think you'll see more of that, and before you see the end of me. So.
Well, awesome.
So.
Well, Guy, we can't wait for your book to come out. We'll see it in the IAPA bookstore. I'll be first in line to get an autographed copy. So I would love to hear more about your life story and your lessons. But in the meantime, again, like Josh said, this was just been a fascinating conversation. If people wanted to find out more about you or Dynamic Attractions, where would you send them?
I'd send them to our website. We've got all sorts of connectivity there. The parent company, which I run, Dynamic Technologies, you can kind of route your way into Dynamic Attractions, Dynamic Structures, Dynamic Entertainment, our 3 divisions. So dynamictechgroup.com is where I'd send people. I think my emails are in there, our press release is in there. Being a public company, we got all sorts of information about us there. We got all sorts of videos in there. So that's the place you learn more about Dynamic Attractions, for sure.
Awesome. Well, Guy, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. Like we said, it was just so amazing to be able to have the opportunity to chat with you and have this conversation. So thank you so much for that. And to everyone out there who's watching and listening, just remember, we are all Attraction Pros.
Thanks for listening to the Attraction Pros podcast.
Make sure to subscribe so you can tune in when new episodes release. And even better, please leave us a review on iTunes.
For more information, visit AttractionPros.com.